Alright guys, hopefully this is going to be the last one we have to make and I should be back on Wednesday. What we're going to do right now is this one's going to be a little bit longer because I'm going to walk you through a few more of the slides. So hopefully you're paying attention and you can always go back and review this if need be. So what we're going to start off with is just a quick fraction problem. You've done these before, we worked on these lots of times. Alright, so let's go ahead and pull this up. So if we were doing 7 times 1/10, we practiced this, that when you multiply something by 1/10, you really just need to move the decimal point. So all we would need to do is make this smaller by 1/10, so we move the decimal one spot. So decimal moves over one place, just like that. So it would be 0.7. Okay? With the next one, 9.3, if you're multiplying it by 1/100th, okay, it's the same as dividing it by 100, so the decimal would move 2 spots over. So 1, 2, and that's the new spot for your decimal. So you would end up with 0.093, or 93 thousandths. And then this last one on here, when you multiply by 1/1000th, it's the same as dividing by 1,000, so the decimal point moves 3 spots. 1, 2, 3, your decimal point's here. Fill in your 2 blank spots. Alright, so now I can see it. It's 0.005, or 5 thousandths. Okay, that's something we've done before. It's not overly complicated. So if we can do that, then we should be able to do it this way. So this is almost the exact same thing. So when we take a look at this next piece right here, you can see we're starting off with the exact same problems that we just had, multiplying it by 1/10. On this side over here, all I did was just changed. Instead of it saying 1/10 as a fraction, it says 1/10 as a decimal. So we would do the exact same thing that we had already done. Multiply by 1/10 means it gets 10 times smaller. Decimal point moves one spot over here, and we end up with 0.7. Now instead of doing all of these, because I know you're listening to a lot, just thinking about how you would do the other two. When you multiply by 1/100th, same as we did over here, the decimal should move 2 spots over. So 1, 2, and your decimal point's there, and you get 0.093, okay, or 93 thousandths. And then the last one, multiplying by 1/1000th, is the same thing over here. We move it 3 spots, 1, 2, and 3. And you end up with 5 thousandths. Exact same thing. Now, that's one of the strategies that we're going to use today to help us figuring out where the decimal point needs to go when you're multiplying by decimal numbers. So, moving on to slide 3, you can see there's a whole bunch of different, very simple, basic problems on here. And by the time I put this video in, for you it might actually end up being slide 4. Sorry about that. So, taking a look, when we zoom in a little bit, the first couple are already done, and it follows the same pattern we just did. We had 1 times 1/10, so the decimal point is right here. When you multiply 1/10, it moves over one spot, and you get 1/10. 2 times 1/10, the decimal point is right here. It should move over one spot, and you end up with 2/10. The same over here. 3 times 1/10, decimal moves over one spot, and you get 3/10. Now I can do this all the way through, or we can just realize that when I do 4 times 1/10, it's going to move the decimal over and be 4/10. 5 times 1/10, well, we'll move the decimal point over, so that ends up being 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10. So when we multiply 1/10, the decimal point just moves over one little spot like that. That's what we're going to look at doing in just a second. So we're going to start applying that idea. This is the part where we're working on today. So this is the new concept here. So zoom in for it so you can see it nice and easy. So the problem I have for you to work on right here, this top part is the part that we just did, says 4 times 3/10. Now we didn't do that before. Every time before this, we were just multiplying by 1/10. And when we multiply by 1/10, we move the decimal spot over one spot. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of that rule of when you multiply by 1/10, you move the decimal point over. So what we're going to do is take a look. I took the 3/10 and I broke it up into two pieces. I broke it up into 3 and I broke it up into 1/10. Because 3 times 1/10, look, up here at the top, 3 times 1/10 is 3/10. And that's what we started with. So all I did is just substituted this in. So instead of me doing 4 times 3/10, we have 4 times 3 times 1/10. So now what I'm going to do is take a look. Instead of doing the 3 times 1/10 first, since it's all being multiplied together, I'm going to do the 4 times 3 first. You've been doing 4 times 3 since at least 3rd grade. 4 times 3 is 12. So then we have 12 times 1/10. Now that you have something times 1/10, you can move the decimal point rule. Whenever you multiply things by 1/10, the decimal point should move one spot. So if the number is 12, the decimal point's right here. If it moves one spot, it's going to slide over to right there. And the end answer for this is going to be 1.2, or 1 2/10. That's one way that we can multiply using the decimal point and making sure that we end up with a decimal in the right spot. Because that's going to be the challenge this week, is making sure your decimal point always ends up in the right spot. So we're going to try a couple of these just to see how it goes. So I have 2 problems on here for us to try, and we're going to take a look at it and we're going to see if we can do it. Now, if you're really using this video and you're really thinking about it, what we should probably do is you should be looking at this problem 6 times 4/10, and what you should do is watch me do the first one, and then once you've seen it, I want you to try the second one, and then you can play to see if it works. So let's see. If I'm doing 6 times 4/10, I don't have any rule for multiplying by 4/10. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 4/10 and I'm going to break it up into 2 pieces. I'm going to break it up into 4 times 1/10. Okay, there we go. 4 times 1/10 is 4/10. So now what we're going to do, I'm going to do the 6 times 4 times 1/10. Now, before I do the 4 times 1/10, I'm going to do the 6 times the 4. 6 times 4 is 24. Now, I still have to multiply it by 1/10, but we have a rule. We've worked on this for months now. Whenever you multiply something by 1/10, decimal point moves one spot over to make it smaller. So my decimal point ends up there. So I end up with 2 and 4/10. So 6 times 4/10 is the same thing as 2 and 4/10. Now, if you're really going to try this, what I would do right now is hit the pause button. Try this one out, and then hit unpause to see if you get the same answer. All right, pause. All right, hopefully you did it. If you didn't, all right, tough luck. So I'm going to go through it, and I'm going to walk you through the steps to see if it matches yours. 3/100 is a little bit different. So when we break this apart, it's going to be 3, that makes sense, times, but I can't use 1/10 because 3 times 1/10 would make 3/10. So instead it's going to be 1/100. Okay? Because 3 times 100 would make 3/100. So I've got 8 times 3 times 1/100. So 8 times 3 makes 24, and then I still have to multiply it by 100. And you can stop and say, oh, but that's so hard, but it's not. Because as soon as we changed it into 1/10, 1/100th, 1/1000th, then we can use our rule, move the decimal point. So the decimal point in 24 is right here. If I multiply by 1/100th, it's 2 spots behind the decimal. 1/100th. You can think of it as that fraction, 1/100th. It has 2 zeros in it. With the decimal, it's 2 spots behind the decimal point. So it means I'm going to move the decimal 2 times. So once, twice, and the decimal point should be in front of the 2. So I end up with 0.24, or 24/100. Okay, so that's the answer to that one. Sorry if you heard that. That was a cat falling. All right, now taking a look. You have multiple ones to try out. So taking a look on independence practice, which for me it's slide 6, for you it'll probably be slide 7 because of the video. There are 12 questions on here. What I want you to do is I want you to split them apart, multiply them, and then move the decimal point. So like the first one, when you do 4 times 8/10, you're really going to do 4 times 8 times 1/10. And then do the 4 times the 8, and then if you're moving it over, 1 times 1/10, the decimal will move 1 spot. This is just an easy way to make sure your decimal point is always ending up in the correct place. For today, your answer should go on a sheet of paper that can get turned in. So once you have these 12 done, you'll continue on. 13, 14, 15 are story problems that involve this skill. 16, 17, 18 are a few more story problems. Once you finish that one, you've got a couple of things to do. Go ahead and get your exit ticket done. Make sure you understand that. After your exit ticket, you can either finish up your iReady stuff for the week, or if your iReady stuff is done, come back and work on the IXLs, not just sit and stare into space and bother the sub. Okay? All right. Good luck. Try your best, and we will go over it some tomorrow together. Thanks.